Gentlemen, it's the first session after lunch, which is sometimes difficult, so there are still some people streaming in, as I see. But that's the reason that we prepared a very interesting presentation for you and also a very motivated and very energetic speaker. So after the lunch break, you will have, and here now, the first presentation again in a thematic strand that we call Innovative Financing Solutions. My name is Björn Zapfler. I'm working for the Executive Agency for Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises, and there in a unit specifically dealing with energy, and here even more specific with financing of energy efficiency. IASME, you will have heard that already, just as a brief introduction. IASME is managing the energy efficiency part of the so-called Horizon 2020 Innovation and Research Framework Program, and here in particular the part dealing with the energy challenge, as well as we are managing also the legacy of the preceding Intelligent Energy Europe program. And last but not least, I also would like to mention that the IASME is also managing the Horizon 2020 part for climate action and the LIFE program, which also supports climate adaptation and climate mitigation projects, and you have also some examples, and you will hear about some examples in other parallel sessions today in this context. If you have any questions of that, and then I will stop here talking about the IASME and come to the focus of the session, but please feel free also to come to our stand where a lot of my colleagues are there and could also give you a lot more details on the programs and the projects that we are funding. It's upstairs in the exhibition hall. Now, but having said that, I come to the most important thing of this session today. It's about the project called Rescoop Mecise. Rescoop Mecise is a project development assistance project, a PDA project, which is funded by us, by the IASME, on behalf of the European Commission. The intention of project development assistance projects is to provide basically funding to prepare a project. And here in particular to prepare a significant portfolio of investment programs during the project duration and have funded all the specific issues which are necessary to do so. For instance, what is necessary regarding financial engineering to set up a significant investment portfolio? What is necessary regarding preparation of a corresponding business plan? Also what is necessary regarding expertise which might not be directly available for a project partner but would need to be additionally brought into play. The project we are talking about, and Karel, and I'm very happy to have him here with us today, this project brings together citizens' energy cooperatives, Rescoops, which is quite interesting and quite innovative. And it does so by bringing together these Rescoops from different member states of the European Union to really develop very concrete projects on the ground and to set up innovative approaches in order to launch concrete investments. So we are not talking about theory here, but we are talking about practical investment projects in the areas of renewable energy, but not only, also in the area of energy efficiency. And here they try to bring together, and also this is a quite innovative and interesting aspect of the project, they bring together citizens on the one hand, but also on the other hand, the local authorities of the communities in which the citizens are living. And in this context, and that's also the reason why it's in this specific thematic strand, is also setting up a dedicated financing vehicle on a European level, which is very interesting to see how that can enhance citizen financing of different projects all across the member states of the European Union. Again, I'm very happy in this context to welcome Karel Derveaux, who has and will also provide all the details of the project. Karel is a member of the board of the cooperative energy company Ecopower, which is actively involved in developing renewable energy projects here in Belgium, in the Flanders region, and which is also Ecopower as such is a funding member of Rescoop.eu, which is the European Federation of Community Energy Initiatives. In this context, Karel is also involved in fostering the participation, as I've said, of specifically citizens in the transition towards a 100% sustainable energy system across Europe. So having said that, he's very much also the best person to talk about this project and give you all the details of this very specific approach that Rescoop Mecise is in the process of setting up. Yeah, with that, you're already there. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Björn. Now, of course, the expectations are very high now, so I hope I will not disappoint.
Was the intention.
Okay, Björn has already given the whole context why we're here, because we got this Horizon 2020 project funded, Rescoop Mecise, and Mecise stands for mobilizing European citizens to invest in renewable energy. So we want really focus on the citizens and get them into investing into sustainable energy in general. I don't say renewable energy, I say sustainable energy. So already in the acronym of the project, we really want to make clear that linking renewable energy and energy efficiency, this is in our mission from the very start. Now, as Björn mentioned, I'm in the board of Ecopower already quite some time, and I take the opportunity to briefly introduce Ecopower, and then it helps also to understand what exactly such an energy cooperative is, such a citizens cooperative, what it exactly is, or what it can be. What we wanted to be rescopes, like an animal which is more or less alike in all over Europe as a citizens cooperative, and that they can really work well together because they follow exactly the same principles. Now, Ecopower was founded quite some time ago in Belgium, in Flanders, with the idea to collect money from citizens to invest in the renovation of water mills in Flanders. It's quite silly. Flanders, c'est le plat pays. It's flat. You know, what the heck do we want to do with water mills? This was a kind of romantic idea that some people from the Green Party connected. They wanted to refurbish these old water mills. You have historic water mills, which was used for milling grains, and later on partly for producing electricity. But then we had some nuclear power plants, and then it was not necessary anymore to have those water mills. Now, that's how it all started. At a certain moment, the European Commission came with some directives to support electricity from renewables, wind and hydropower. And at that moment, there was like a new breath in the cooperative, which at that moment had like 40 citizens members. Why don't look into renewable energy sources that are available in Flanders and where that are profitable in the actual market in the market situation at that moment when the directive was put into force in Belgium. And that, of course, was wind energy. We're along the North Sea coast, and it's quite a good wind regime. So we started our first project development as a hobby, and that was around several wind turbines in the province of East Flanders, close to the coast. Now, it happened that it worked, and at the end of 2018, we ended up with over 53,000 cooperative members, citizens. That's because in the statutes of the cooperative, it's said that the capital, the equity is open, and you just invest. You invite any citizen to join in the cooperative by sending over money. One share is 250 euros, and that's not an amount which is too large to risk. So many citizens did so over the years, and on average, members have 4 shares, so it's 1,000 euro. So this means that the equity is all, if you see the number of cooperative members, the equity is almost times 1,000. So over 50 million euro as equity. And over the years, this money has been really invested in assets, in equipment which is in the ground, which is producing renewable energy, electricity, mainly electricity here in Flanders in the region. So the people really can go and see and feel their property, their assets which are producing renewable energy here. In the past years, we also have filled the gap of the green heat, because many people in Flanders still heating with heating oil. And we think this is something, the first heating source we should get rid of, and perfect to replace heating oil or wood pellets, especially as we can source the wood in our own region and produce the wood pellets here in our own region using waste heat from a small power plant using biomass. So we use green electricity to produce the wood pellets, sourcing local wood, and the installation has enough capacity to provide over 5,000 of our members for their heating needs. Now, as over the years, the European Commission also took care that there was a kind of created of a free market space for supply of electricity and gas. We got a question from the cooperative members in the year 2002. Would it be possible that we as a cooperative become our own supplier? So we produce electricity, but then also we supply it ourselves to ourselves. Company, the cooperative as a company becomes supplier and supplies the electricity produced from their own installations to the members. The answer was yes, this should be possible. So we started to examine this and did all the administrative procedures to become a supplier, and this happened in December 2003. From then on, Ecopower became supplier, but supplying electricity was from the beginning a service to the members. It was not an activity to get profit. It was an activity really to do what the members asked. They wanted their own electricity from their own installations supplied at home. So, and we said, okay, we do that as an organization, and we do it at cost price. The difficulty then was to set the tariff, because from one way you know what is cheap is wasted. So if you make your kilowatt hour cheap, there's a tendency that people don't take care and they waste. On the other side, you don't want to make it too expensive, because then you punish your own shareholders. So the middle way, I think Belgians are good in that, find a compromise, is that we set a tariff without fixed cost, a linear tariff per kilowatt hour, not night or day tariff, just one tariff. Any kilowatt hour has the same value. If you don't consume it, you save it. And this appeared to be many people liked it. So many people wanted to join us as a supplier, but then they saw that we only supply to members. So what was their reaction? If they can, by changing from supplier, they save like 300 euros per year, they buy one share of 250 euros and become member. So that certainly, from 2003 onwards, we got a very steep in-stream of new cooperative members, citizens, who wanted to become client, who then discover what we really want to do, who like it, who buy some more shares, talk to the neighbors, and so on. So that comes that we now end up with every year several thousand people joining the cooperative without us doing any effort, in fact. So I talked about the supply activity already. I talked about the production of the pellets. So we supply also the people who replace the oil heater with the pellet heater with the pellets at home. We also give guidance on how to do this. Altogether, we supply to 45,000 customers in Flanders. That's about 2% of the households in Flanders. Of course, we get a very good ranking from Greenpeace, because criteria are how green is your electricity, where do you produce it? Is it produced from a nuclear power plant here and you put a green label on it from hydropower in Norway, or do you produce it here from renewables in here? So that's what we do. So we always get the high ranking. That's quite logical. Also, the customer satisfaction, by the simple fact that the supply service is set up as a service to the members. That means the service is good. We don't want to make profit on this. So that's all very logical evolution that makes that steadily we go forward. And also we see very clearly the effect of this principal approach on the consumption. People get involved and they understand what it is about. And we saw over the years, over 10 years, that when people at that time had an average electricity consumption of over 4,500 kilowatt hours per year, from our total customers, the average now is under 2,000, because also many also invested in PV on the roof, because they were encouraged by us, and we gave them all the information, said, do it, technology is ripe, that's the way to do it. But even those who did not put PV panels on the roof, they saved a lot of electricity. They are just under 3,000 kilowatt hours per year. The last thing to tell, which is related to this supply activity and to this service activity, that's a service about saving energy at home and really doing serious energy measures in your own home or your apartment to reduce your energy consumption, both electricity as heating, also to apply as far as much as possible renewables, to bring it down 50% or more compared to before. And this guidance, we call it Eco-Traject. It's a paid service to the members, but it's also just covering the costs, what it costs us to provide the service. It's not to make profit. The profit is made on the investments, and shareholders indeed get a dividend every year, on average 4 or 5%. So it's not much money they invest, but they have a return. Now, it appeared that this kind of model is a good model because it works. It's proved in practice, and we have been talking with many organizations in Europe, and we see similar organizations popping up, already existing and growing in Europe. And a kind of umbrella name, acronym, Rescopes, stands for Renewable Energy Sources Cooperatives, but of course energy efficiency is linked now. The better term is energy community initiatives, because they are very different. But in fact, they always have a legal entity which is directly controlled by citizens. And their aim is to become really actors in the energy sector, have a place in the energy sector, and do all activities, develop projects, set up production of energy, also be involved in distribution and supply. Distribution still is kind of monopolized, but there already we see in different other member states also openings that citizens also have a say in the distribution. Now we have a kind of triple involvement of the citizens. It's not only financial, they buy a share, but of course clearly also economic involvement. They buy their own production, and be it electricity or green heat in form of pellets. And by that there is also kind of personal involvement, and they get open, and they're really working on the idea of the energy transition. We have to go forward, combining energy efficiency, fill the gap, what we still need with renewables, and go to clean energy transition. The basis of collaboration between those Rescopes all over Europe is those 7 principles of the International Cooperative Alliance. You can look them up on the internet. One of the major principles is that there's a democratic control by the citizens, by the simple fact that irrelevant how many shares you only have one voice in the General Assembly. So this means that this is kind of legal entity which cannot be controlled by big interest groups, because for instance, for Ecopower, from this over 50,000 citizens, they all have one voice in the General Assembly. You never can control this group, because you even cannot organize a General Assembly where half of the shareholders will be. So this keeps it very open, democratic, where really any citizen who is involved can have a say. Now more and more, we involved also other economic actors, in particular cities and municipalities, because clearly there is an evidence, I'll come to that later, that they have same stakeholders, energy cooperatives, energy community initiatives. The stakeholders are citizens. For cities and municipalities, the same citizens are the stakeholders. To organize everything better and not have Ecopower standing alone and others in other countries standing alone, we organized a European umbrella organization, which is called Rescoop EU, where we really try to streamline our activities and learn from each other. And then we come later also to the point of the financing. I mentioned already this logic alliance between citizens who get well organized and the municipalities. And the other thing I mentioned also, that we as Rescopes, we really try to look into combining renewable energy investments which are profitable with investments and a lot of work, development work in energy efficiency, which is basically not profitable. But when you combine both, everything is possible. So about the project itself, the Mecise project, you see the acronym, mobilizing European citizens. When we see the members involved, not only Ecopower in Flanders, but also Courant d'Air in Wallonie, the south of Belgium, Enercoop in France, covering the whole country of France, Som Energia, covering the whole of Spain, and Energy for All in UK, and of course the umbrella organization Rescoop EU is involved also. But we're talking about over 150,000 citizens who are involved in this action, in fact. The focus is on developing new investments, but also go on and really in an organized manner facilitate the work of citizens when they join forces in combination with local energies that want to strive to speed up the energy transition. And financing there appeared to be a very important issue because we still are very small structures and energy investments are very capital intensive, they are long term, and there we really find out that we need a known structure for financing our work and our future development. So the last line is the targets for the project. We are quite ambitious. I don't know if we reach them, but we get quite a way. So I mentioned already most of this, that we look into project development as a prime activity. Of course, the bigger renewable energy investments, wind, are the driving forces. And we really try to involve from the early beginning the municipalities, not to only for their approval, but also to teach them and to have them co-investing in those new investments so that they also are structurally involved and they get structural returns from this investment that they can invest again in sustainable energy in their territory. I think I mentioned most of this. We have a large portfolio built up. This is a 4-year project. We're now at the end of year 3. So really, we started with a clear list of things that we had in mind. Some dropped off, others came on. So this portfolio is quite large. And at the end of 2017, we had already over 40 million euros investment really launched, being built already, or in the phase of being built, or where permits are allowed, or equipment is ordered. So not only in renewables, but also in energy efficiency, be it at a modest level until now. Okay, this is about the service. I won't go in depth. The service for Rescoop members to help them to reduce energy consumption in their private houses. This is not set up as a one-off. This was the original plan, but we changed it. It's better that we set up a service, which we try out in Flanders with a big group of citizens already, and when it works, we make this available to the other Rescoops, and then they have to develop it, change it, so that it works in their region also. That's the name. In Flanders, we call it Ecotraject. Of course, there's a web-based approach. People have to do something. Really, you ask their commitment. You have to fill in a quick scan. So we have a look about what is the situation of their house, how much energy they consume. They join this energy monitoring platform. They get reminded to fill in the meters of electricity and gas, water, transport, kilometers they drove, wood they fired, and so on. So that we have an idea of their energy consumption, and then when they join really this trajectory to reduce the energy consumption, we know where we started from and we can follow up. Now, I finally come to the point of this conference about financing. Why is it important for energy cooperatives also? We are still quite small structures. Renewable energy investments are very capital intensive, but they are profitable. Energy efficiency investments are not so expensive, but they take a long time to develop them, and they are not very profitable or not at all, or over a very long periods of time. So to come over all these problems, specific problems related to the nature of the Rescoops is also is additional variable equity, because it's open membership. Sometimes national regulation is hindering that you pool money of many citizens. In France, for instance, at the beginning, your Rescoops are small, they lack the know-how and the capacity to work on this complex financing. So we looked into the possibilities, starting from experience that we already had by collaboration between Rescoops, lending each other money, doing joint investments, so you can each have to pay only half of the investment, Or in some countries, you have specific funds that were created, like in France, Energie Partagée, Energy Prospects in the UK, and in Holland, you had something similar. But under Rescoop, we really looked into something that would work for us for the future. And the basic principle is bundling. Yeah, it was mentioned this morning also in the introduction. If you want to use the funding that is available on the European level, at the EIB and so on, you need large amounts, investment volumes, not 200,000 euro, but 50 million euro to start with. And of course, we as individual Rescoops, even Ecopower already a bit bigger, our normal investment project, like 2-3 wind turbines, it's 10 million euro. So this is local financing, and it's not to a point that you can access European financing tool or from the larger financial institutions. Okay, this is the principles we followed to set up our own structure, fund or whatever. I call it a vehicle that serves the Rescoops in their needs to finance their projects, not only the investment phase, but also upfront development phase. That's at least the idea. There were some things we said, really, we need to take care. It should be dedicated to the specific nature of these Rescoops, these strange legal structures, these strange animals controlled by citizens. It should also be able to limit the risk for individual Rescoops. Even when one is involved in a very big project, you can share the risk through this joint vehicle. It must be quickly operational. It should not cost a lot of money and a lot of time before you can start doing something. And it should be able to work in every European member state. Under full control of the Rescoops. We don't want to be controlled by politics or big companies or whatever. At the same time, keeping the same transparency and democratic governance as we know in each individual Rescoop. I think we finally came up with a structure to realize this. And what is this again? Okay, this is what we dream of. What we could do with this vehicle. You could facilitate or even enter into investments set up by individual Rescoops, or you could set up, you go into larger investments like offshore wind investments. That's far beyond the scale we work now, but with this vehicle, joining energy cooperatives like Ecopower, 3 or 4 of them, like some Energia in Spain and so on, we would be able to get involved into or setting up and owning and operating an offshore wind farm, for instance, where you're talking about 500 million plus investments. And what we see, the last point, maybe is important also, what we see happening is that existing renewable energy projects all over Europe that were built by commercial developers or sold for profit reasons. There's a market for it. It's got about large amounts of projects that perform well. They are sold for a lot of money. And we want to be able to also bid in these and acquire part of this existing assets in the renewable energy field. This gives the time scheme of the vehicle we want to set up. I can already say that the statutes are written. We could publish the statutes now. We're doing the last legal check. Also trying already out specific investments with the vehicle, so we'll be sure that it works. So this timeline is really correct. In the first time, it's only Rescoops who will be involved. Later on, we want to invite also private investors who will not have in control. We only have a financial participation. And then also public investors, and at the end, maybe also European citizens directly. Now they can invest indirectly through the Rescoops, because the members of this, or the owners of this vehicle, are citizens energy cooperatives, so they can invest indirectly, but at the long term, maybe it makes sense to have European citizens involved directly, but this is not for the coming years. So as I said, we are setting up a new legal structure, legal entity, and the type will be European Cooperative Society that really exists. It has the same open capital structure as we used to in every individual Rescoop. And the members to start with are the European members Rescoop themselves. As you see, the 5 partners in the European project, and the Mecise project, will be the first shareholders. And of course, we use then leverage through all means that are available, EIB, EBRD, what is it, local banks like Belfius, whatever. We always say if you have good projects, then you will have the financing, but of course you need to work on it. We want this new company to work as autonomously, will be self-financed, because it will at certain times also be an investor himself and stay owner of or co-owner of investments of the Rescoops, and then have a return so it can pay the operations of the organization itself. So as mentioned, it's meant to start now, and we have quite some high ambitions for the future in 7 years. So basically that's it. I hope I didn't take it too long, so we have some time to discuss.
Well, perfect. Thank you very much. It was not even not only interesting, it was already, you kept the time very well, so we have the time for the questions on that, I would say, quite interesting approach, which in our view has a number of innovative parts and issues, trying to bring together on the ground, on a local context, on a local level, not only the citizens on the one hand, but also the local authorities, not only tackling renewable energy, but combining it in the form of balanced portfolios with energy efficiency, and also trying to set up to increase the financing capacity of the single cooperatives, a financing instrument that can work across the borders, which is, I suppose, quite challenging then in the operationalization. But having said that, I suppose you might have quite a number of questions, and based on that, I would like to open the floor just for you, to give you the opportunity for that. There is one question over there. Do we have a mic? Yes, good. Well, it's, you know, maybe I say that also here, everything is recorded, can be downloaded, so therefore it would be good if you just introduce yourself, and that afterwards we can also hear what you were saying on the web.
Thank you. Seth Landau, I'm a consultant with Eco Limited. We focus on project preparation and assisting in financing for sustainable development projects, including energy projects. I had 2 questions. First, you talked about the linear tariff, and if you could describe what that actually means. That's because I didn't quite understand it fully, as I think it's quite an interesting model. The second is, it seems to me that your primary goal is to be able to have sufficient investment capital to scale up your investments, while at the same time maintaining your current assets in terms of you're not interested in selling off your wind farms, et cetera, et cetera. Have you investigated or thought about, for example, factoring or some kind of selling of your receivables in order to maintain ownership of the assets, but at the same time free up additional cash capital for future investments? So that's for me. Thank you.
Okay, first about the linear tariff. It's I know it's very unusual, and I have to be honest that since a year or so, it's not 100% linear anymore, because of course, the world is changing, energy legislation is changing everywhere, and there's some additional taxes imposed in Flanders, and we have to charge these taxes 1-to-1. So if the total bill isn't linear anymore to the energy consumption. But still, apart from the taxes that we, as I mentioned, charge one-to-one to the customer. Per kilowatt hour is 1 tariff. So it's not that you have to pay, if you don't consume anything, you don't pay anything. So let's 3 years ago, we had about several thousand customers who got 1 bill per year with a 0 on it. Those had invested in PV and too much. So on an annual basis, because it's annual meter reading, they produced more than they consumed. So they don't get any money back, but they pay 0. So we had that for several years, that quite some thousands of customers had a 0 invoice. Now it's not the case because they have to pay this tax part anyway. But for the rest, you just look at your counter, electricity counter, one day, today, and over 1 year you look again, you see the number of counts times the tariff, that's your invoice. It's linear. It's not that if you, from 2,000 kilowatt hours per year consumption, your tariff is lower. That's traditionally the case. That's not the case with us. It's 1 tariff. Do you consume it over the day or in the night? It doesn't matter. It's 1 tariff. Okay, that's about the linear tariff. Then about sufficient capital. Did we have to organize ourselves to get sufficient capital to be able to invest? I think we were lucky. The in-stream of fresh capital from new shareholders joining us always allowed us to get sufficient bank loans, foreign money from the bank, to get our investment financed. Sometimes it was the opposite, that we didn't have enough projects to invest in. We don't touch the in-stream of capital. We're not calling for people to buy shares or holding them back. We just let it come as it comes. That's our choice. And then we just see how far we get. And until now it worked pretty well. This so that since a few years, with those typical investment projects that we have, this volume of 10 million euro for a typical wind farm project in Flanders, we don't need long-term loans. We take 2 short-term loans, for instance, one for 2 years and one on 5 years for part of the money. And then from experience, you know, the capital that's coming in through the new shareholders is sufficient to pick up together with, of course, with the income through the production from this new project. And it's also, maybe that's the most important to say, that's, of course, that's it. We are not setting up any new project company per project. All our assets are in one company, the company Ecopower. So it's one big pot. It's not that we have a specific special purpose company or something, or a project company per project. No, every new project comes just in the assets of Ecopower. So then you have also the capacity, you have the buffer, financial buffer of your structure.
Do we have further questions in the room? There is one at the very back, I think.
Yeah. Hi, Nicholas Stanchov from Funding for Future. I was very impressed to hear, and I'd like to hear again to make sure I understood, 4,000 kilowatt hours per capita has now been reduced to less than 3,000 for those that don't have PV on their roofs.
Yes, that's correct.
It's 25% reduction in energy use.
It's even more. It was, when we started our supply activity, it was an average 4,500 kilowatt hours per supply point, which is typically a single family consumer. And now it's under 2,000 on average over the...
Yeah, but that's with the PV on the roof.
With the PV on the roof. Those without PV, it's less than 3,000.
You can't, you know, the PV changes things a little bit, but the ones without the PV, that's still over 25%.
Yes?
You think it's just behavioral because they are more conscious as a result of being a participant in this process?
I think it's a combination. Both, it's linked to the tariff. Because with this linear tariff, if you increase your consumption, you see it immediately in your invoice. And we got a lot of feedback also from our members on this tariff. They like it a lot. I just give one example that comes back every month. People say our freezer is broken. We go to the shop and you have 10 freezers standing there. And they have now this nice labeling, A, B, C, of energy consumption. But then next to the letters are the amount of kilowatt hours per year that you save by choosing a triple A instead of A. And then you can calculate like that because the tariff is linear. They know this, it's 25 cents times this difference in energy consumption. And they see, oh, this more expensive freezer, it's just 2 years and the payback, the additional investment is paid back. And normally freezer it's for 10 plus years. So they can very easily decide which kind of electrical appliance they choose. And then very often they choose for the energy efficient appliance because the simple tariff. So it's both, it's mainly to the tariff that they can calculate it and that they get aware. So the awareness is coming after the fact they can easily check the impact on the bill.
There's a
Easily
question.
check, except that, so I see layers. There's a layer of education. There's a layer of carrot and stick through the tariff. There's a layer of reinvesting smartly because it's kind of, you've created more than just education, you've created an atmosphere of awareness.
Yeah, it's all linked, of course. When people first look at the money, and then when they say it pays off, they get aware and they get enthusiastic about it, and they pay more and more attention into it.
We have a question here in the middle. I think.
Marco Caponigro, de MEPA, a power engineering consulting company. I have just two questions. One is, did you ever, among your members, face a situation in which they were also managing the local grids? And again, how were the relation with the local utilities?
Okay, on the first question, no, we did not have a situation that we were involved in local grids or whatever. This is by law not possible in Flanders. The relation with the grid operators, it's with the DNBs, it's generally okay. It's a very professional relationship. We are an actor on the energy market, so we need to be able to connect with our production units to the grids, so they need professional collaboration, and it's really very well regulated also. At the side of the supply activity, you need the data from the DNBs, the consumption data, which are the official data that you use for everything. So there is a very professional relationship, and I think we had a very open collaboration, open-minded. Although there is, of course, some stress. Traditionally, DNBs don't like that you look in their cards. And we are a new player who is asking all kinds of questions. Why this, why that, why should this not be so and so? And they're not used to that. But generally, there's a quite constructive dialogue and an open mind for collaboration and improvement.
Just to add, and if you have the opportunity, according to the regulation in Flanders, will you be interested, according to your understanding of the situation and of the market, to manage a grid?
Absolutely, absolutely. This has been discussed many times. We as citizens cooperatives, we also calling up to politicians to open up the DNBs for investment by citizens, not directly but through the cooperatives, and also to be involved in changing the grids for the future. Yeah? To understand about it, we have also specific know-how, and we want to learn from them, from us. And I think then the energy transition, where you really use the grids to welcome a much larger extent of renewables, we could accelerate largely. But again, this is a very traditional part of the energy sector. It's really well regulated, it's in the hands of politics, and this changes very slowly.
Yeah, with that, we are nearly at the end of the session. I would take in one more question, if there is one. Otherwise, I invite you also to further discuss on the corridors and during the end of the end of the session today or the event today. Is there any final questions? Otherwise, I would like to take the opportunity again to thank Karel. Thank you very much. I think it was very interesting and also very inspiring, a very specific approach in this context. Thank you very much.
Okay, my pleasure.